New suspension, factory 37s, and no V8. Well, at least not as of yet. What's up, guys? Justin with AmericanTrucks.com here with your latest installment of truck news featuring the all-new 2021 Raptor. Now, I'm excited to share some of the details here with the third-gen truck today and see if the OG king of the desert can steal some of that thunder back from the TRX. But let's start with the engine because I think everyone who has been keeping an eye on this release was wondering, is this the year Ford finally puts a V8 back into the Raptor where it belongs? And at this point, that answer is no. Well, back for the standard Raptor, at least for 2021, is the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, now sporting fancy new turbos, an improved cooling system, and a rather fancy new exhaust, which I will say doesn't sound too shabby given that V6. Listen up. Now, our launch spec sheet does have both horsepower and torque listed as to be determined, which obviously is a bit of a bummer here, but we can only imagine Ford will try to improve upon the second generation Raptor numbers of 450 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, the EcoBoost is still backed by that 10-speed automatic transmission, but there have been some software upgrades to that transmission for this model year. But the big question still remains, what about this V8 powered Raptor we heard prowling around the streets of Michigan recently? The one everyone was speculating will have the supercharged 5.2 from the GT500? Well, our information from Ford didn't include anything about this particular vehicle, with one lone exception, that a Raptor R is coming next year. They just kind of snuck it in there in a random paragraph. So will this be it? Will this be the TRX clapback we are all hoping for? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. God, I hate saying that because Ford has left us in suspense yet again. But let's move on to some things we do know are coming, and that is the completely new suspension, both front and rear. Now, Ford has finally kicked those leaf springs to the curb, and in their place now is a hardcore 5-link rear suspension that looks to me like it's been pulled directly off a trophy truck and made into the newly tweaked frame for the 21 Raptor. Now, the coil spring loaded 5-link will simply outperform the dated leaf spring setup in almost every aspect, both on and off-road, and even towing, as this new Raptor tows more than the last one. And it does even make for some massive jaw-dropping travel. 14 inches up front, 15 inches in the rear when equipped with the 35s, which is better than the TRX's 13 inches of travel both front and rear. Of course, we can't talk suspension and not mention the star of the show, which for the 21 is the newly updated and upgraded Fox Live valve dampers, which now sport the slightly larger 3.1-inch shock bodies both front and rear, and are filled with a new low friction fluid. But the big story here with the new Gen 3 dampers is not the increased diameter or the new fluid, but just how smart things have gotten. For instance, the semi-active Fox system is able to monitor how you drive and basically predict what you are going to do next based off of speed, steering, and throttle input, and adjust the damping accordingly. For instance, if the system notices you are kind of slowing down, driving less aggressively, it will decrease the damping in all 4 shocks to increase your overall comfort. However, if it predicts you are going full send and just ripping through some rough terrain, it will automatically increase that damping accordingly. Now, it can also adjust damping simply based off of the terrain, as those live valve shocks are constantly monitoring their position thousands of times per second, which again is just simply mind-blowing. But helping with that off-road capability, the BFG KO2 is back for the 3rd consecutive generation here in a row in standard 35s, of course, but new for 2021 are the massive 37-inch options. Take that, TRX. Now, these tire options will be wrapped around one of 3 different wheel choices for 21, 2 of which are beadlock capable. Now, as a Gen 2 owner, I audibly gasped when I saw this thing is gonna fit a 37 because listen, fitting a 37 on a Gen 2 is no small task and requires a good bit of modification. So I, for one, will be very curious to see this setup in person. Now, your suspension travel will ultimately be a little bit more limited with the bigger 37s, but the rest of your off-road figures will just be legendary. 13.1 inches of ground clearance, 33 degrees of approach angle, almost 25 degrees of departure angle, and 24 degrees roughly of breakover angle, all of which simply just blow away the TRX. But let's switch gears and talk about styling, because that's a big part of what the Raptor is, and personally, I love it. A nice balance of Gen 1 and Gen 2 bits, but with a unique enough look to be distinctive. Now, width hasn't changed much. It's up 1/3 of an inch to 86.6 inches, which is still a bit shy of the TRX's rather girthy 88 inches of width. Now, front end has all the ingredients of past Raptors, right? You get that bold Ford lettering, amber running lights in the grille and on the fender flares, blacked out quad LED projectors that look absolutely sick. Now, bumper is very similar, in my opinion, to that of the Gen 2, but now has the factory optional rigid supplied fog lights with snazzy little Raptor covers in there. Check those things out. And I will say that's a solid addition and something that Raptor owners will certainly be able to take advantage of, along with this wider skid plate underneath the front end to help protect your vitals. Hood and fender vents have also been completely redesigned and were heavily inspired by the F-22 fighter jet, which shares that same Raptor name. Now, I'm really digging these new graphics here, which include a cool topographical map on the code orange paint color here, which is also new for the Gen 3 truck. Glad they brought back the orange. Out back, old favorites like the optional tailgate applique and Ford lettering does make their return, as do things like the bumper exit dual exhaust system, which looks good and we talked about sounding pretty good. But there's also new additions like the blacked out taillights here, which I think look really sharp. Now, one thing to mention, guys, is that these smaller Super Cab Raptors will be no mas here for 2021, as they are making their exit and will only be offered in the Super Crew configuration. Now, inside the truck, we're seeing more of that awesome interior we absolutely loved about the new 2021 F-150, just cranked up to Raptor levels of detail, right? This includes the unique front seats, a unique leather-wrapped steering wheel, optional orange stitching, optional carbon fiber package, and Raptor logos kind of scattered about the premium level interior. Now, as far as your tech is concerned, we'll expect all of those fancy gadgets from the 21, including the massive center screen, along with your digital gauge cluster and Sync 4, but also with Raptor-specific terrain modes and goodies that bring back the return of the crowd favorite Baja mode. Now, pricing is yet to be finalized, but they are starting to hit dealer lots according to Ford this summer, hence that 2021 model year. Now, overall, am I slightly bummed that the V6 is still there? Well, yes and no. As someone who has driven the EcoBoost powered Gen 2 Raptor for the last few years, the power really is hard to complain about, but Ford is absolutely still kidding themselves if they don't think the lack of V8 soundtrack doesn't take away from the day-to-day experience. It is very important. However, we can only hope that the upcoming Raptor R will change all of that and send the TRX running for the hills. As always, guys, we want to know what you guys think. Drop us a comment wherever you're watching this. In the meantime, I'm Justin. Thanks for watching, and for all things F-150 and now Raptor, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.